Okay, so why is the topic of creating a welcoming environment so important? So there's many youth organizations, as you all know, where we can be part of or spend our time. There's sports, scouts, dance troops, and all kinds of ways that we can get our kids or grandkids or our foster kids or whoever involved in what we're doing. The 4-H program is unique in that we really focus on developing young people and the life skills, the whole child, so that learning in 4-H can be used throughout their life. For those of you who might have been in 4-H as kids, you may understand exactly what I'm saying. As alumni, you now see those skills that you're able to use in your real life when you're doing things. Maybe that skill you learned in cake decorating or woodworking is working well in the job that you have. And hopefully as leaders, if you weren't a 4-H member, you've had the ability to see this happen in the children that you work with in your club or your project area. Research shows that there's 4 essential elements that are part of a quality program that youth can attain positive outcomes that lead to less risky behaviors, and that's always good in today's society. So one of those criteria is a welcoming environment, and we want a place where youth feel like they belong. And as we spend the next hour together, you'll often hear me refer to the word belonging instead of maybe a welcoming environment. Those two things can kind of go hand in hand. Youth need to know that they're cared about by others and they feel connection to the group, or in this case, our 4-H clubs or project areas. Your 4-H group should be a place where youth feel physically and emotionally safe. Research also shows that youth need to have a long-term and consistent relationship with adults other than their parents, and that's where all of you come in, that caring adult concept. The research suggests that a welcoming environment is the single most powerful positive ingredient that we can add to the lives of young people, and I think that's exactly why this topic is the most important. It's the single most important part of a 4-H program, that welcoming environment. So what do we find in a club or project area that has a welcoming environment? The first thing it needs to be is inclusive. And what that basically means is youth or your families in general feel like they're welcome. They have an environment where they feel like that they belong and you welcome them in. The second thing is that there is a caring adult. And that means basically youth feel cared about and accepted by others. And they've developed a supportive relationship that will last a lifetime. I know that for me, as a longtime 4-H'er, there are still leaders that I am friends with on Facebook that I call when I have questions. And I know that there are young people that were in my programs in Missouri and Wisconsin before I moved here who still text me every day and say, hey, how's it going, or ask questions. And I'm sure a lot of you have that type of relationship with the young people that you work with, especially after they graduated and moved on to other aspects of their life. The third one is a safe emotional and physical environment. This is where youth are not engaged unless they're comfortable in their surroundings. They're not going to become part of your group if they feel threatened or they feel like they're not welcome. And adults, you may not volunteer if you don't want to know how to handle a situation with a young person. So you may choose that this is too much for you, that this isn't your thing because you don't feel that safe and emotional and physical environment also. So throughout the next hour, my goal is to spend a little more time talking about how we do this in our 4-H programs. How can we make sure that we have inclusive environments, caring adults, and safe emotional and physical environments within 4-H? So the first one is an inclusive environment. So what does this look like in 4-H? Youth members encourage each other during fair judging, sporting events, academic challenges. Interestingly enough, this doesn't just say 4-H events. It's really great if your inclusive environment extends beyond the 4-H program. Members feel like they belong to a specific club or group, while they also know they belong to a larger state and national organization, like the Wyoming 4-H program and then the National 4-H program. There are signs, banners, shirts, and recognition bearing the 4-H emblem, putting the clover out there. I don't know if anybody can see I'm wearing my one from anybody who came to the football game this weekend. We handed out these shirts, so shirts with clovers on them are always great. And then all members feel free to invite friends and welcome new members to events throughout the program year. And that for us can be really challenging because a lot of our stuff is very build on each other. So we may have started a program in November and we have a kid who wants to bring their friend in February when we're halfway through things. So how do we make sure that they feel welcome to do that in order to make sure we're not turning people away? So this is our first little thought process. Let's think about your club and the traditions or your project area or whatever part of 4-H you're involved in and the traditions that are involved with your 4-H program. So look at these. Think about in your head, how is your meeting ordered? Where do you currently meet? What decorations do you have around your location where you meet? Where do people sit? Where do people enter? And what language do we use at the meeting? Now I'm going to have you take a few minutes, probably not a few minutes, like a minute or two, to think about those things from these perspectives. What happens if you're a 7-year-old kid coming into your meeting and they think about those things? A junior in high school, a youth with a physical ability, someone from a different culture or ethnical group, a single mom with a baby, a youth with a severe behavior disability, a family that just got done choring in the barn and they came in their barn clothes, or maybe you're a grandparent raising grandchildren. Do those things look different to people who are maybe different than who we personally are? And some of those may describe you to a T, but I'm guessing not all of us fit in all of those categories. So really think about how the traditions that your club currently has creates an environment that may be uninclusive, that's really turning people away because of the way you do things. So if you're a 7-year-old and your meeting starts out with the treasurer's report, the secretary's report, pledges that you've never heard of, and then you go into some business, are you engaged? Are you having fun? Probably not. If you're a junior in high school and you have to go to location, maybe a grade school or places that you're not comfortable, maybe there's people are sitting and all the little kids are there and that's all there are and there's nobody there for you. What does your meeting look like? The youth with a physical disability, this meeting location one is huge. Are they able to find a place to sit easily? Are they able to get into the building easily? And just kind of going through a single mom with a baby. How welcoming is your environment? Or is there a place for her and that baby to run around if it's screaming, or for a different room for her to go to so she doesn't feel like everybody's staring at her? Or maybe that family done choring in the barn in 4-H, that one's not so uninclusive. We're probably used to the smell of barns coming in. Maybe those kind of smells on people's clothes, that might not be as big of a deal. Or grandparents raising grandchildren. There's some cost of things to think about. In 4-H, we use language that doesn't make sense to half of the world. We use like UW and extension, and they don't know what those things mean. And so we really need to think about how we can make sure our traditions fit the needs of all of the people within our 4-H program. So this meeting doesn't allow for a lot of interaction, but I appreciate the comments. So if you have comments about this or things you want to add, feel free to type those in the chat box and we can share them with everybody. But I think it's really important for us to think about how ingrained we are in tradition within our 4-H program. 4-H is a traditional program. Most of us were in it as kids or know people who were in it as kids, and we tend to build on the same meeting concepts that we did before. So think about how you can change the order of your meeting. Maybe your location, and maybe you can't change your location, but maybe you can put up some decorations to make people feel more welcome. Maybe you can have no people sit, you can kind of mix that up every time so that everybody's not always in the same places so that they don't feel like they have that seat kind of like at church. Thinking about where people enter, I think it'd be really hard to enter where the officers are sitting. If you're in a 4-H meeting, maybe you need to flip your room around so that people don't feel embarrassed if they're 5 or 10 minutes late to walk through the middle of your meeting. And really clearing up the language we use. If you're going to talk about CWF and you want people to go to it and you say everybody should go to CWF and they're like, what does that mean? It's important to talk about that means, it's a Citizenship Washington focus, it's a trip to Washington, D.C., it's for this age group. So really thinking about explaining things as you do them, not just assuming that everybody in the room knows. So how do we make an inclusive environment happen within our 4-H program? One thing we can do is encourage ties with family and community. All of the people that are in your club are probably involved in some way in a community, and they're all involved in families. So you can encourage that to happen within your club meeting. That might include community service projects or service learning projects that help people. And even more exciting is if you help people that are in your own club. So if you're a mom in your club works at the nursing home, it might be a great way to engage people who are part of your club and part of the community together. You might tour facilities that are in your community, maybe the fire station, the police station, and it's even better if you have a link that they can say, oh, so-and-so's dad works there and so-and-so's grandpa or whatever, so they can kind of put 2 and 2 together. Have parents serve as speakers at your club meetings. It would be a great way to have them talk about how they're involved in the community and then attach that to your club. Host elements that are related to family, that are family related. So have potlucks, invite families, encourage little kids to come, have a place for them to do something so that they don't feel like they need to leave those smaller children at home. And then I think that's all I have for that one. The next one is encourage collaborative and cooperative learning. And we're really good about this in 4-H, but this is where project work really plays a great role. Team up younger members and older members, or members that have been there longer with members who are maybe newer. Try to do some group work like that community service, fundraising, social aspects will work to help encourage those things. Have icebreakers at the beginning of every meeting. You're thinking, oh, I don't know how to plan icebreakers, that's too much. Well, good news is I've helped you out here. All of this stuff about this meeting and actually the recording are on our volunteer website. So on our volunteer website, I've actually put up, this is what it looks like. So if you look down here where it says icebreakers and games and activities, the icebreakers are a website from Illinois where all of their 4-H educators, and they have way more than we do, so that's very, very long, put all of their favorite icebreakers online so you can go and look at them and click on the thing. You can print it out. You have it as a go-to, so that way you can do an icebreaker at every meeting and not have to have a lot of time to plan or prep. And the games and activities is a similar document from North Dakota that will help you to do games and activities at every one of your club meetings too. And that's a great way to start to engage those younger kids. It also helps for that 5-minute late family to not maybe miss most of the meeting, and maybe it'll get people to come to your meeting more on time because they'll be excited to be part of those activities. Another thing you can do is provide many forms of recognition, not just those that are competitive. We're really good about awarding ribbons to kids for first, second, third place. We do a great job with that, but we often forget about that kid that maybe doesn't excel at competition. So again, if you go to that website, there's a really great tool that's linked there called the recognition model. And I know this is really hard to see. That's why you can go there yourself and you can download this and print it. Or if you don't have that ability, let your 4-H educator know and they can do that for you. But the national recognition model basically looks at different types of recognition. So there's recognition for just participating. Maybe everybody who shows up at the December meeting gets a pencil. Or when I was in 4-H, everybody at the December meeting got a 4-H cookie cutter. So maybe there's something that everybody gets just for the fact that they showed up. Cooperation, awarding people for working together in groups. The peer competition one, which is the bottom left corner, is the one we're really good at. That's where you compete against each other, you get ribbons. See, I even have a hard time reading this. The next one says progress towards self-goals, so setting goals and then reaching those goals, awarding kids. And it doesn't have to be a reward. It can be and actually just saying, hey, who met their goals that they set for their project, and having that kid stand up during your club meeting and giving them a round of applause or some type of special recognition for that. And then the last one says standards of excellence. And so that's similar to our record books, or I guess you could call them portfolios, where they actually have a set of criteria they're looking to reach, and then they're trying to get to that goal. So think about ways to reward kids for things they do that are not specifically showing animals or competing at the fair or doing judging contests, things that are just everyday things they feel like they're part of the group, especially for those kids that maybe aren't excelling at that peer competition concept. So, and then the next one is show respect for the value of diverse cultures. And no offense to Wyoming, but our diverse cultures are probably the most limited in a lot of our clubs. We have a lot of people who all come from the same backgrounds and similarities. So if you have people who maybe have a different culture or different ethnic background that they want to come and speak at your meeting and talk about what they are, or maybe there's an exchange student in your community, try to bring those people in to help our young people really learn about the entire aspect of what's going on in their world. One of the 4-H clubs I worked with before had every family pick a different country, and they do a tour around the world. And so they either make food or a game from that country, and people could learn about those different countries. You could focus on a different state or a different country a month. And then you could have all of your snacks and activities that you do kind of related to that kind of different culture. So different ways that you can kind of bring those things in. And if you have culture and diversity within your club, celebrate that and let them share traditions they do at Christmas or holidays, or different things that they maybe are doing different than that you are even. So a lot of us have different cultures that maybe we don't understand, that we don't even know exist, because they're not things that are very visible. They're things that we do, and having ways to discuss those and share those would be a great way to do that. And the last one of how to make inclusion happen within your club meetings is encourage supportive peer relationships. Find ways for kids to encourage each other, get along, and that can happen through playing games, different things that they might do where they have the opportunity to work one-on-one with each other in a peer relationship concept. So I'm going to show you what I think is a very powerful tool. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. I'm going to go back. Whoops, previous. Okay, so basically this is what every 4-H club meeting should look like. And probably very few of them, and very few that I've ever been involved with, actually follow this model. And for those of you who can't see, I'm going to kind of explain what it looks like. It's a circle divided into 3 quadrants. And within your meeting, there should be 3 things: business, recreation, and education. And a lot of times in our 4-H program, we really focus on the concept of business. We do a lot of motions and voting and election of officers, and we really focus on our business aspect and forget that recreation and education is important. In fact, I'm guessing many of us have said, oh, good, I got out of the meeting in 15 minutes. That was awesome. And we forget that that 4-H is really more than just that, doing that business. There's lots more that goes on. So think about ways, the icebreakers, those games and activities that you can incorporate recreation into your club meeting, and then the education, and that would be those speakers, peer relationship opportunities, all those kind of things that we just talked about can happen in that 20 to 30 minutes of education and the 15 to 30 minutes of recreation, and figure out ways that we can reduce how the business happens, because that's not the most inclusive part of our 4-H program. Business meetings are very confusing to new families. They don't make sense to those of people who haven't maybe been in 4-H or have done business meetings. So ways that we can kind of work to beef up our recreation education, and maybe some of that is even education about what a business meeting is and how it runs, to help our people feel more welcome within that environment. So other places where this might happen is phone calls to and from leaders, those personal phone calls, especially to your new members, and maybe you delegate that to someone else because you don't have time for it. Totally acceptable, but having that one-on-one contact, maybe even a text message, how's it going? And it doesn't have to necessarily be related to 4-H. It could be that learning about that other stuff that happens outside of the club meeting. Make sure that people feel welcome when they enter the meeting. Have a greeter that shakes hands and says, hey, welcome. You know, you can sit wherever you want, because some people walk in and they're like, where do we go? What are we supposed to do? And another thing about this, recently, we just joined 4-H here, and we walked in and there were no clovers. We were the first ones there because we were a little bit early. And so it's really making sure that they understand that they're at a 4-H club meeting, so they're not going to walk away and be like, what were we doing there? That feeling welcomed, maybe you have a new member welcome packet or a new member gift, or you ask them their shirt size and the club gets t-shirts for everybody. That might be another way to help them feel welcomed. Having education and project talks at the meeting allows young people to engage with each other with those peer relationships, and also helps us learn what other people are doing besides just the things that we're used to. And again, recreation outside of the meeting or meeting time, we talked a little bit about that in the previous slide. So here's an interesting picture. This might be what your average meeting room looks like. You have some chairs, you got some tables going on. It's probably kind of boring. And so I walk into this and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? What's supposed to happen? So some ways that we could spice up this meeting space, or you can spice up your meeting spaces. One, first of all, you can add some agendas. Put some agendas on the table. Let people know what's going to happen during the meeting. Put names on them so people know who's giving the pledges and who's doing different things throughout your meeting. You can also put up a big welcome sign. This one might be a little extreme as far as big, but just a thing, welcome to the so-and-so 4-H club meeting, or just welcome in general, so people know that this is where they're supposed to enter, this is where they're supposed to be, so they don't want to turn around and leave. You can post the 4-H pledge somewhere so that people know what they're saying. Those of us who have been in 4-H, that's ingrained in our brain. We stand up, we say the pledge, but if you think about a new member, this is very intimidating to them, because they're standing up, there's people around them listening to them, they don't know what they're supposed to say, they don't know about these weird motions that you do during your pledges, so thinking about how you can help them with that. If you don't have the opportunity to put a pledge poster up that's big enough for everybody to read, you can also make pledge cards, especially for your new members, that they can carry with them so that they can read what the 4-H pledge is. Put a clover up somewhere. That's really important. You can have many, many clovers laying around the room. So put clovers up so people understand, hey, this is a 4-H club meeting. And then also you probably have some 4-H flags or other memorabilia that you can put up around the room to let people know, yep, you're at a 4-H meeting and we're going to say a pledge. That's why we have flags up. Some more ideas that might help is clothing is awesome. So putting the clover out there is great for advertising for 4-H, but it also is a way for people to feel like they belong to a group. So if you don't have club shirts already, I would highly suggest you get a club shirt design. Talking to your local, or maybe a project shirt design if you're doing a project group. Talk to your local shirt company. They may be willing to keep that on file, and then kids can just go in there and order whatever shirts they want. If it's a one where you maybe have newer members, that they can go in and do that. If you have families with like crickets or silhouettes now, they make vinyl that you can do iron on. So maybe you have a parent who's willing to say, hey, bring your shirts to the meeting and pay me $1 and I will, or maybe $5, I don't know how much vinyl costs, but I'll be more than willing to make those shirts for you. But clothing is a really great way to tie people together. They're out in public, oh, look, that guy has the same 4-H club. I didn't even know that he was in our club, or, oh, he's in the shooting sports project, so am I. And it's a great way to kind of create that inclusive environment, not just in your club meeting, but within your county and within the state. Do some signage. That's super easy. So one of the things that's on the website is a template that looks a lot like this. I put a welcome, a clover on the bottom. You can actually type anything you want, like the shooting sports meeting, the Cricket Creeks 4-H club, or whatever you want. You can put at the bottom. You can print that out without having to do a lot of work yourself, and you can hang that up all over your club meeting so that people know they're in the right place and they're going to the right thing. I told you too that there's the option for pledge cards. So on the website also is a printout where you can print this out for your club members, or I'm guessing your extension office will be more than willing to print this for you if you don't have the capacity to do that. So printing some pledge cards to have for, especially for new members or for the younger kids. And this one's nice because it has pictures too. It's in color, which you wouldn't have to print it, but that makes it also engaging. And so you can send those out to your members too to help them feel welcome within the program. So does anybody have any questions about the inclusive environment concept or any comments they want to make of things they've done to make their environments more inclusive? Okay. All right. If you do, feel free to type them in the chat box, and that way we can add them to this PowerPoint later, or we can be sure to share them with everybody, or we can talk about them as we move on. So the second thing that's important within the 4-H program is the concept of caring adult. And like I said before, this is the most powerful part. So you guys are huge in this 4-H program. If we don't have caring adults, we don't have positively engaged children. So you are doing a great job for being our adults. So, and someone said name tags. Good job. Name tags is a great way to have inclusion. So the next thing I want you to do is to think back to an adult that has a positive influence on you. For some of us, that might be a few years ago. For some of us, that may be many years ago. I understand how that works. But if you could write 1 or 2 characteristics of what you think that person had that made them a positive influence on you in the chat box. So I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes to write what made that person that positive influence on you, the person that you're thinking of. So if you can type in the chat box a couple of characteristics, those of you in a big group, you can type 4 or more if you want to, so that we can maybe discuss those as we move forward with this. If you haven't found the chat box, it's in the bottom if you kind of scroll around down the bottom.
Hey, Sarah, somebody said, believed in me, positive.
I know.
Fearful, fun.
Good, keep them coming.
Carol said, Mrs. Janetti at NCHS cared and showed me loved of teaching. Oh.
These are perfect.
Listening and caring, empathetic and caring. Enthusiastic and non-judgmental.
Okay, we'll give you a couple more seconds if anybody has any other things they want to add to the chat box, but I think these are great. Some of the things that stick out to me is that concept of positive, caring, listening, enthusiastic, which goes along with positive, fun, non-judgmental.
Took time to listen.
Yes, listen, and those are all things you're going to find are going to come up today in our little thing. Asked about how you were doing, so we talked about that, being engaged in your life. That part is really good. New ideas. I also think being prepared that comes with. Said hello, are you welcome? Support group for us all. Praise and encouragement. Perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. So these are great things for us to think about as we start this discussion about what a caring adult looks like. So that's our next slide, is what does a caring adult look like? And a lot of you got some of these within the answers that you made. First, they call you by their first name. That's really important, and I know that it's super hard to learn everybody's names, but I have some tricks coming up here that maybe will help us. They know the interests of the youth and their members. So I think somebody said they asked them how they were doing. They were a support group with them, so that you know they're not just in the cake decorating project. You know they're playing basketball at the rec center, they're wrestling, they're doing all these things. What kind of stuff are they doing maybe that you don't know about, and how do we find that out? So that's the same one. They know what you're doing both in and outside the 4-H program. And now we're going to talk about how to make that happen. So some things you can do to make sure that you're allowing yourself to be a caring adult and help create caring adult relationships in your program is first, you can have small group time available to allow the development of close relationships within the club. And what this might look like is during your education or recreation, maybe you do 1 adult and 3 kids at a table and have a set of questions for that adult to ask, like, what'd you have for lunch today? What's one thing you learned new in school today? What's your favorite 4-H project? And what are you involved in outside of 4-H? And allowing them to converse with someone that's not their parent. One, can help the self-esteem of our young people, but also helps them to understand somebody actually cares about them and what they're up to. So having time for a small group, and project meetings are great for this. So a lot of times we may have 1 or 2 adults that are working with 3 or 4 kids, and it allows us to happen naturally. But if our kids aren't engaged in project meetings, or they're engaged in project meetings like shooting sports or things where are so huge, how can we scale that down to give those people one-on-one time to actually create some relationships? And within shooting sports, it may be that same leader working with the same 3 kids every week in order to create that where it's repetitious, so they're actually creating a relationship. Provide multiple opportunities for you to develop relationships with adults. So besides just that small group, there are other things we can do to make sure that we have adults developing positive relationships. And maybe it's chaperoning events or activities, or it could be anything where the adults are allowed to work with the young people one-on-one. So maybe you're doing a community service project and you make sure that you assign one adult to 3 kids that aren't their kids. So they're allowed to kind of work with them. And we're also talking about certified adults here, so that's kind of important in my aspect, or that there is, if it's a group of 3 or 4 kids, that there's at least one certified adult with those kids. So just have to throw that in there. So I talked about maybe it's not easy to remember everybody's names, so you could create a photo member library. So as new members join, take their picture, and you could create kind of like the church guidebook or the school yearbook for 4-H, and you could either share that and distribute it, or you could just have it for yourself so that you could learn all the kids' names, or give it to all the leaders in your club so they know who all the kids' names are, so that we can do that first one, which talked about is where the adults know the first name of their young people. One of the clubs I worked with did a really cool thing. They created an All About Me notebook. So they had every kid in the club at the beginning or end of the year, it wouldn't matter, but the beginning of the year would make more sense, fill out something that looked kind of like this. And this is one of the handouts you can find on the website. This one is not 4-H specific, but you could totally make it 4-H specific. But it says, my name, I'm this many years old, my favorite color, and you can ask questions that you might want to know and have them fill it out, and you can either keep it in a notebook and leave it kind of on the counter for pre and post arrivers at your meeting so people can actually learn about each other. But it also gives you as a leader a chance to learn some things about your kids that you can be like, oh, hey, you want to be an electrician when you grow up? Did you know that so-and-so's dad is an electrician? Maybe you could talk to him. Get to know them. That's a way you could develop some of those other adult relationships. But using this All About Me notebook so that you know lots about your club members that maybe don't seem important, but the fact that you're asking a kid his favorite food, and maybe you, their birthday month, you make that favorite dessert or something, or maybe at your club you share what people's favorite foods are, then you can make those as some of your club snacks. Another thing we talked about, someone mentioned this as far as creating an inclusive environment. This is also a great way for you as an adult to make sure you know the kids' names. Is use name tags. You can use sticky labels. You can have kids make name tags as part of a craft project. There's lots of ways that you can incorporate those name tags in there. The other thing I would say is if you're going to make kids wear name tags, let's also make sure our adults wear name tags, because that inclusive environment and caring adult thing goes both ways. So if kids can know what the name of the person they're approaching is, it's going to be a lot better for you both to know each other's names. And feel free to use the Mr., Mrs., whatever you're comfortable with. For me personally, I like to be called Sarah. Mrs. Torbert is my mom, my mother-in-law, and so I don't want to be called that. But you can definitely see whatever people are comfortable with to write their names on so people can see who is around the room and what they're doing. And then adults need to listen. This is one of the things we brought up earlier too. So I told some of you, and if you have a piece of paper and a pen, we're going to do a little exercise. So everybody grab their closest piece of paper, scratch paper, and a pen, and I'm going to do a little listening activity. So here's how it starts. We're going to draw something. So everybody has a paper and pen. I'll give you a few minutes to make sure you can grab those. I see Megan getting up to hand them out to everybody. Like I said, scratch paper, whatever you got is completely fine. It doesn't have to necessarily be anything. You'll probably throw it away when we're done. Okay. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, the first thing I want you to do is we're going to draw a scene. So I want you to draw a farmer with no arms. Okay, so draw a farmer. This is, remember, remedial drawing, so don't feel like you need to put a lot of detail into it. Draw a farmer. He doesn't have any arms. This farmer happens to be a chicken farmer, and he's outside currently feeding his chickens. So I need you to draw the chicken feed scattered on the ground in front of him. So you got a farmer with no arms with some chicken feed scattered on the ground in front of him. Next thing I need you to do is circle the farmer and the chicken feed, because you're going to create the little pen that the farmer is in. So you got a farmer, chicken feed, and a pen. And then this farm is in Wyoming, and so there are 2 distinct hills, one on the northeast side and one on the northwest side of the pen. So if you could draw the 2 hills, one located on the northwest side and one located on the northeast side of the pen. And then I need you to circle the pen, the hills, put a big circle around all of it, and you're going to create the farm. Okay. And then on the side of the farm, on the right side and left side of the farm, there are 2 fields. So draw the fields. Okay. And when you're done, your picture should look exactly like mine because you all listened so well. And this is what mine looks like. Right? Everybody's looks just like that, correct? So we got a farmer, no arms, feeding the chickens, circled the pen, got some hills on the side, big farm, and 2 fields on the side. My guess is that unless you've done this before, nobody drew a picture of a dog that looks just like this. We probably have some crazy pictures going on. And part of that is we all speak a different language, and that's part of the 4-H language we talked before. And kids speak a completely different language, and so we really need to make sure we clarify and are really listening to what they have to say. Engaged eye contact, repetition back to them, asking them questions to make sure that you heard them right. Just making sure that people understand what you're saying isn't always what they're hearing. And so if we can create that relationship with young people where they're really listening, or we're really listening to them and actually not drawing a dog and maybe actually drawing a farm or some chicken feed and whatever is requested. Or maybe in the kids' head, they were telling you to draw this and you drew a picture that had an actual farm and all kinds of things. So really thinking about how we listen and how we process and then making sure we're asking questions back is really important because we listen a lot of times where listening is a huge part of a caring adult. All right.
Hey, Sarah, there was a request to share that on your volunteer website.
Okay, I will try to write up some directions for that and share my beautiful picture because it's a great way, it's a great club meeting one too to talk about listening and making sure that we're hearing what people are saying. So I will work on getting that up in the next week here to make sure that you can use that. Thanks. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is the concept of a safe environment. So what does a safe environment look like? In a safe environment, you have a club that encourages and supports their members. And so that would be the emotional safety. You also have a club that has a physically safe location, a place where members know that no one is going to make fun of them, no one's going to insult them, and no one's going to threaten them. So for those of you at Extension Office, I warned you that we would be using dominoes in today's activity. So if you have them, great. If not, you don't need them. But I'm going to read you a little story. It's called Davy's story. And in Davy's story, the dominoes are going to represent things that happen to Davy that are negative. So if you have dominoes in front of you, feel free to set one up every time that you hear a negative thing said about Davy. If you don't have dominoes in front of you, putting little check marks might be a great way to kind of keep track of them. If you just want to listen and not worry about it, that's also definitely an option you can handle. So I'm going to read you this little story. Like I said, if you have dominoes in front of you, this is where you're going to get them out, set them up. So Davy was sleeping soundly when suddenly, and I also, before I start to, Davy could be the Sarah, the Michael, the Abby, whatever you can think of, that one kid who struggles in your club, or that one kid that you just want to figure out how to reach. You can insert your own name in here, but Davy is the one that they chose for this story. So Davy was sleeping soundly when suddenly he was awakened by his brother pounding on his blanket and shaking him. Davy, whoops, you lazy bum. Get up out of bed and go downstairs before Dad comes up here. Davy gets out of bed, rubs his eyes, and gets dressed. His mother sees him and tells him to go back and get another shirt because that one is all wrinkled and has a tear. You just don't care how you look, do you? His mother says. When Davy goes to brush his teeth, his older sister has locked the bathroom door. He's asked how much longer it's going to be, and she yells back, "What do you care? You're the baby, and you have bad teeth ever. Anyways, remember?" He goes to breakfast, but there's no toast and very little milk left to put on his cereal. Everyone else has already left the table. As he leaves for school, his mother calls out to him, "Davy, you forgot your lunch again. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You'd forget your head if it wasn't attached." As he gets to the corner, he sees the bus pull away and all of the kids pointing and laughing at him. He has to walk to school, and of course he arrives late. He gets a late flip from the office where he gets a lecture from the secretary about being more responsible. He walks to class late and remembers he forgot to do his homework. He thinks, oh well, she doesn't expect me to hand it in anyways. She doesn't like me. She didn't want me in her class in the first place. His teacher asked him to stay in at recess to finish his work while the others go outside to play baseball. He rushes through his lesson and hurries outside, but the others have already chosen teams. Davy stands around for a while, but nobody seems to notice him. Then the PE teacher tells him to join a team. One of the boys yells out, "Hey, Davy, we got stuck with you last time. Give the other team a sure out instead of us." Later that day, Davy gets his homework back, and he got a low grade on it. To make it even better, the teacher put a sad face on his paper and writes, "Your work is too sloppy and careless." When he gets home, he learns he will not get the dog he wanted for his 4-H project. You're just not responsible enough to take care of a dog, his dad said. Later that night, he goes to bed. He has tears in his eyes, and he thinks, nobody likes me or even wants me around. I might as well just give up. Yet, he secretly hopes that when he gets up Saturday morning and goes to his 4-H meeting, things will be better. Although he just started, it seems like it could be a cool and safe place to be. The leader even called him by his first name, and the meeting was just 2 weeks ago. So maybe your dominoes look like this. When I counted, there were between 20 and 21 negative things that were said to Davey in his day. I think about how that might affect me if 21 negative things were said to me. So when you think about dominoes, the interesting thing about them, let's see if I can move to the next slide here. Oh, yep. Is that what happens is when one falls, what happens? They all fall. So in turn, the domino effect happens. That one negative thing that happened to Davey may not have been so bad at the end if all the middle things didn't happen to him. So it's just a continual cycle that just keep going and going and going. So as 4-H leaders, you've heard that Davey's really excited about the 4-H meeting because the leader called him by his name, which is interesting because we talked about that already. And even some of you mentioned that as being a good adult in your life. Whoops. Happened a few times. Okay, we'll go there. But as 4-H leaders, you can help to remove some of those pieces. Saying nice things to Davey or encouraging him, helping him with his 4-H project can help to take some of those dominoes away from your pile. Then you may have dominoes that have spaces between them. Maybe some bad stuff happened in the morning, but then some good stuff happened in the afternoon. So what happens is the domino effect doesn't take place. In turn, maybe only 3 bad things set Davey off, and then he has a better day the rest of the day because someone was encouraging to him and didn't say the things like his teachers, his parents, his brother, his sister, but there was that caring adult in his life to maybe make the domino effect not quite as bad. So now I want you to think about your club meeting, and this is where I need you to participate again in the chat box. Please tell us more about, is your group a danger zone? What physical and emotional things might be happening at your club meeting, or maybe they're not at your club meeting, but you've seen that happen in the 4-H program that might make it a physically or emotionally unsafe place for young people to be. So you can take some time to write those things in the chat box, discuss with your friends if you have them near you, anything that you want to talk about that may make your club, project meeting, activity, whatever it is, a danger zone for young people in our program. Anybody have anything they can think of?
Sarah, we in Goshen County, we talked about the way we talk to our young people. Sometimes we're like the adults in Davey's life.
Great, thanks. And I think in the chat box we have cliques within a club meeting that happens a lot, especially when kids know each other and other kids don't. Some members always run in the events. They're the ones that do it, and some people are being ignored. There's lots of bullying or teasing. The day stress in your voice, how many times does that happen where you've had a bad day? I think as a parent, that happens to me a lot. I've had a bad day, and then that becomes my kid's problem. Any other things you can think of? A lot of these are emotional. Anybody think of any physical things maybe too? Rude older youth who single younger members. Bullies and cliques, those seem to be really important. So it sounds like we need to have one on how to help get rid of bullying and cliques in your club meetings. So before this meeting, I just came up with a few that I could think of. These are great. Some of these I didn't get, so I appreciate everybody's ability to write. Mine are mostly physical environment. So unsafe grounds or playground equipment where you're meeting. Maybe there's some playground equipment outside that's maybe not the safest playground. A lot of us might meet at old schools, community buildings, churches that maybe don't have the money to update their playground equipment. So how our youth are engaged in that. Also, there may be candles that are part of your meeting environment that you may have be a fire hazard. Talked about the older members picking on younger members happening. If you're in a place that has a kitchen, the young people may have access to knives. So that could be something to think about, or cleaning solutions that the janitor leaves around to clean the bathrooms and things like that. Breakable items that youth might have access to, and that's twofold, and that the glass could hurt someone, or there may be some emotional scarring because they broke something they weren't supposed to. A lot of us work with firearms within our shooting sports programs. So are they safely, they should be, but are they safely put where they need to be? Do young people have access to them? If they do, is it in a safe manner? Maybe a member was unable to answer a question and someone turned their laughed at or made fun of, kind of like Davey in our story. Some other things, screaming fights, poor guidelines, strong opinion made to parents, potential bullying. So all of these are great things that I don't have a solution to every problem, but I think the first thing is being aware of them, that they're happening. And if you can work every meeting to plan how to get rid of some of those things. So maybe if you have poor guidelines or maybe organizing things and helping kids, those bullies and cliques, maybe talking about how other people feel. The tube of toothpaste one, if anybody's ever done that, is one of my favorites. Where you bring a tube of toothpaste and people say negative things and you squeeze out toothpaste for every time someone says something negative. And then you talk about how you get the toothpaste back in the tube and it doesn't happen. That once we say mean things that they tend to stick with people. And so you could even record some of the things that were said at one meeting and be like, these are things I heard at our last meeting, and talk about how they made people feel. But there's other activities too that you can do to help people understand that their words have consequences. But think about ways that you can create safe environments and you can fix some of those things, whether it's making sure an adult stands by the knives or by the cleaning solution, or that we talk about bullying cliques, creating new groups where people have to meet each other, maybe uncomfortable at first, but I definitely think that in the long run, it's going to help some of those things to go away. So we're at the end of our day. I hope that you were able to learn something about creating safe environments. I gave you some ideas of things maybe you haven't tried yet that you might want to add to your meetings. So the things that we learned today is that research shows that a welcoming environment is the top priority to ensure youth have a 4-H positive experience, which is why this is probably, as 4-H leaders, the most important thing we can focus on. Even before the project skills and the life skills, if we can't have a welcoming environment, people are not going to come back and people are not going to be engaged. So if that doesn't start your club meetings, that doesn't start your club project meetings, people are going to leave and they're not going to want to become part of your experience. So that's why this is important. A welcoming environment includes a place that's inclusive, which means people feel like they belong or that they're welcome. A welcoming environment has a caring adult. So that's the role that you guys are going to play as 4-H leaders, that you're there to be the person that's not their parent. Interestingly enough, you may hear lots of interesting things from them because they're going to engage you in a way that they're maybe not engaging their parents. That's a great way where you can kind of help to guide their ability to stay away from risky behaviors. And that a welcoming environment is both physical and mental. It's not just about being safe in a mental way, it's also a physical way, or vice versa. I think often we can think about the physical things and we don't often think about the emotional parts that scar our kids or that may get to our kids as part of the 4-H program. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to type any questions or comments you have about the things we talked about, any new ideas you came up with that you want to share with the group, because we won't be able to share the chat box with the taped recording. So if there's things that you want to add, we can be sure to let people know. And in the meantime, I have a homework assignment for all of you. So I'd like all of you to take some time to write what I call as a letter to me. You don't have to write it to me, but I'd love to see them because I'd be more than willing for the next 6 months to really help you stick to the information that you put in your letter. So write a letter, could be a paragraph, could be a couple sentences, could be bullet pointed, I don't really care, based on what you learned today. So things you can do personally, physically, or that you can do mentally to make your club, project, your activity, whatever, more welcoming. And things that you can do within the next 6 to 12 months. So how can you change your club? Or maybe it's just maybe your club is doing great. And you just need to make sure that you want to add a few things that we talked about. So maybe you're going to get shirts for everybody. You're going to put signs up everywhere. Simple things like that. And my email address is there. So if you can take some time and write that to me in the next 6 to 12 months, I'm going to check up on all of you and ask how things are going. See if there's any questions we can have to answer, if there's more resources you need, get you involved with your 4-H educator if they can provide those resources, or I'm more than willing to help do that for you. So like I said, in the next week, if you can send me a letter that says, thanks, this is what I learned that I'm going to change in my club, and then I'm going to check up on you in the next 6 to 12 months to see how you're doing. And then some of the chat things that happened was, thanks for the clarifying information, no problem. Yes, I will have access to the PowerPoint slides and this recording. So if you missed something, you want to watch it again, this will all be posted on the web by, today's Monday. So by Friday, all of this will be posted on the website that I showed you as part of those slides and handouts that are available to you. And then someone said they want help on how do you help negative opinions of burned out leaders to the lighter side of not influencing new members. And that's a great question. So maybe we can talk about that I don't have any answers off the top of my head, but maybe we can talk about that as a way to see what their negative opinions are and how we can help them. A lot of times our traditional leaders get set in our ways, me included, and so part of that is revamping how we welcome new members into our program. So thanks for that question, and maybe we can deal with that in a future one, or in turn, Gina, I can definitely get you some information on that also. Speaking of future ones, so our next training is February 19th. It'll be very similar to this one. The topic that evening will be all the opportunities that are available in the 4-H program, more at probably a regional, state, and national level. Hopefully, again, we'll have some educators on like they are now, and they can share maybe some local county things that they're doing that they may be able to add to some of the things that you're doing within your own county. Once again, if you have any questions or want more information, feel free to contact me. There's my email address again. And then the website that we're using is that 4-H Volunteers website. So you can just do a UWYO 4-H Volunteers search and it'll come up within your Google Drive. So in one final comment, Tammy said, burned out leaders can take a break or vacation from the group. And I think that skill set, being able to get them to do that without being angry, is a very great skill set. So Tammy might be able to share with me also her comments and how she made that happen if she's had dealt with that. So I think that's always interesting to help those leaders who maybe don't see things your way or who have some negative opinions or negative feelings about the 4-H program to be engaged and continue to be engaged. And I can offer some suggestions too for those of you who have that problem. We can talk about that via email, or you can always call me also. So. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Like I said, if you have any questions, want more information, that would be great. And we would love to hear from you and learn more about your experience and what kind of resources that you need from us here at the State 4-H office or from your 4-H educator that I can provide them also.
Hey, Sarah, is there any way that I can get a roll call?
Yeah, if you didn't have a chance to sign in, if you can make sure to write your first name and last name in the chat box, and then the county you're from. And if you can't do that because you're on a cell phone or whatever, could you please take a few minutes here, we'll leave it on, to say your name out loud so that we in turn can record those and get those into the 4-H Online so you get credit for this class.
Specifically, this Kathy who typed in the chat box a moment ago.
All right, Kathy Atkins. There she is. She wrote her name down. Also, this is a side note, if you're watching the recording of this and you want to get credit for this, please directly contact your 4-H educator. We will be recording the names of the people that were live participants. However, if you're watching the recording of this, we ask that you call your county extension office so they can record that for you into their 4-H Online system. All right, everybody have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, I can't see my clock on my thing, but it was a little bit less than an hour. So hopefully that was a good time for you and you got some great ideas of ways you can incorporate a welcoming environment into your 4-H club meeting. So have a great night.